such a powerful team, 3 Beavers and Turkey, as we're going to have Puppypaw and Kasva on the playing field for the Beavers. And on the other side, we're going to have CsOH making an appearance once again, and he's going to be joined up by Neptune this time around.
Yeah, so interesting that it's not Magic. I really was expecting Magic plus Puppypaw or Wham here. Like, I know Wham especially plays a lot of the Abbasids. Maybe they're planning to kind of sync up a little bit later. We have to remember, like, even after Civ's reset, you have to go through all the potential combos first with your players, right? So it might be that we see this combo again with the other 2 players later. But cool to see Puppypaw and what is considered one of his strongest Civs, right? Like, this guy from day one was spamming the Chinese alongside the Mongols. It was his most played Civ, I believe, of 2021.
Yeah, on the other side, HRE and Malians. Now, folks, don't forget there was a small patch just 1 or 2 days ago, which did involve some changes related to the Malian string strategy. You do now have a lower cost for cattle, but there was a change with the gather rate for allies. So you could say, oh yeah, it's not as powerful as it used to be. You still shouldn't forget the fact that an HRE player wants to compress its economy and wants to make sure it doesn't have to expand towards additional sources of food. So, while sure thing the gather rate was slightly changed, at the end of the day, Malian slinging cattle to HRE is still relevant.
Yeah, like I said, it got buffed, right? It's now 25% less. Gathering rates are a lot lower at 0.66, but it's still decent, especially the HRE buff. The whole logic here is on a map like Prairie, you are going to run out of food. So as an HRE player, do you want to be coming out your base? No. So usually your choice is to build farms. There's not enough wood to justify on this map. So it's just a very complementary combo for a 2v2.
Yeah. The big thing with this change is that it allows the Malian player to contribute much more on the playing field, and it's going to be a way less reliant combination on the HRE. So Malian player is going to have to invest less into the cattle due to the cattle being cheaper, and on the other side, HRE is going to get, in quotation marks, less benefit than what they used to get. So there's going to be a slightly smaller contribution initially from the HRE, but because of the cost decrease on the cattle, you would expect the higher contribution on the battlefield from the Malian player early on.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious more to what's going to be happening from Free Beavers into Turkey. Like, I think this combo of Malians plus HRE has been seen and known quite a lot, but Bastards plus Chinese, it does strike you as an incredibly greedy combo, especially on such an open map. I did mention in the pregame that I think it's going to be this kind of give and take, right? You get harassed, then I get harassed. But I want to see what the composition is coming out. Are we expecting a fast castle time from Puppypaw? Are they looking to rely on Palace Guard? Could that even work against heavy men-at-arms coming out from the HRE plus Musafadi warriors?
Yeah, that's a big question. I feel like if we see a heavy Burgriff play supported by Musafadi warriors, that could be dangerous. Sure thing, Musafadi warriors are glass cannons, but when you have men-at-arms supporting them to tank up most of the arrow fire coming from a town center, per se, then you could easily just commit, potentially even under town centers, and just burn down a bunch of buildings, wipe out a bunch of villagers. So I feel like if Neptune commits to a decent amount of army when we see the Burgriff Palace kicking in, I think they actually have a window. But it's going to be tricky because, as you said, they're up against 2 civilizations that can both go very greedy. So knocking out one player, or heavily damaging him even, is possibly going to be insufficient.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like, you get a lot of these 2v2s where we talk about as a 1v1 and a 1v1. But the weird part is I don't necessarily see this game playing out that way at all, simply because of what these 2 combos want to do, right? On one side, in theory, you have the most greedy civs imaginable, right? They can get a lot of value if they're given options of room. On the other side, you have this complementary, like, I'm going to inflate the HRE player approach to the Malians. So it just might be that we don't even arrive in 1v1s, and instead we get straight into a 2v2 clash in the mid-game.
Yeah, for the time being, standard openings out there, with a decent Aachen Chapel out on the front, and it looks like Kasva's going to open with a range, but he's on the stone, so it's going to be a second town center no matter what. Question is whether we are going to see him going archers or possibly camel archers.
Camel archers sounds good, but it's so hard to reach that threshold, right? Like, I'm not the biggest fan of opening with camel archers unless it's, you know, I need one for the aura. If people try to mass camel archers, frequently what I end up seeing is they're just too slow. And something we do have to keep in mind is that Beavers are already incredibly greedy. So if they're planning to go mass camel archers, that's even more greed. Like you're essentially, I've got a greedometer here, and you've broken it, right? It's smashed. There's glass everywhere across my room because it's going to take you too long to build an army. Camel archers take 35 seconds to build, 240 resources each. They're a great unit if you get them. They're pop cap efficient, but they are terrible as a long-term investment in early game.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we are seeing mass camel archers, as we do see on the top left, you can see that yourself, we have camel archers queued up. If we see that, it's going to be a temporary solution to a possible Burgrave opening, because don't forget, camel archers do have a really good base damage for a feudal age unit, so their armor piercing power is actually pretty decent compared to what you usually get from your feudal age units, and it could easily be your kind of bridge unit that just shields you from the initial few men-at-arms.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's like maybe 2 to 3 max and not too many more than that. Like, I think if you go beyond that, it's super greedy. I like the idea of raiding, because like if you think about the civs you're up against, you know, a Malian player might build a few javelins early, that's about it. An HRE player is never in any place under the sun going to commit to range units. And if you needed any more proof than that, just look at what's being built by CSO right now. It is going to be the Burgrave build as expected, but interesting detail here. No villager from the base of Neptune yet. We are not seeing any cows being slung whatsoever.
Exactly. Now, the Burgrave was spotted over there by Poppy, so was the tower, and Kasva was going to use that information to be a little annoying with that camel archer, and looks like he might even be able to find a good angle on that gold, and this is why we're not seeing a sling. It's going to be...
Castle.
Oh, I love it. As I said at the beginning of this game, I feel like the Malian player has to contribute something on the battlefield, and they're just gonna go all in here, similarly what you would see with a Malian sling. But this time around, it's not gonna be a Malian sling. This is gonna be Burgrave plus the flood from the Farimba garrison.
And look at the full grid on the other side. Like, it's double TC already from Kasva after going for the initial camel archers. Guaranteed Puppy Ball is being just as greedy at home. He's got double TC plus Song Dynasty, so free TC effective. Yeah. It seems good. It's like, wow, this grid is amazing. Like, you know, can the HRE and Malians kill them fast enough before they get their greed? Probably, because the issue on Prairie is you don't have much at home to be greedy with. Your resources are limited. You have to come out of your base for wood quickly in this type of map.
And from what I have seen, most of the scouts for Kasva and Puppy were scouting the base of CSO. So they know fully well it's a Burgrave. What they don't know is that there's going to be a Farimba garrison on the other side, and if this gets concealed for a couple more minutes, this could be very nasty, because look at that. Javelin throwers already making an appearance, and this could be a nasty surprise for Kasva and Puppy.
Especially when you look at what Puppy Paw is building as well. It's Shugenu plus Camel Archers. Everything is going to get countered by the Javelin throwers. Their comp makes sense up against men-at-arms spam, right? Shugenu is even decent against the men-at-arms because you can only reduce their damage so much. They attack in bursts. But Javelin throwers, it's kind of weird. Like, Javelin throwers, if they were longbow speed, I think Shugenu would still fare well. But the problem is Javelin throwers move the same move faster rather than Shugenu, right? So you can never really gap close upon them. It's such an annoying unit to try and clash with. And it's funny how people's opinion on this matchup has changed, because I remember in the early days of this patch, profound and non-stop Chinese spam a Kraken. I remember talking to him, he's like, yeah, I actually think Shugenu can't counter Javelins. 1 week later, yeah, actually, Javelins take a giant crap on Shugenu. It's not even close.
Yeah, for now, the game plan of Neptune and CSO are obvious to them, or Puppy and Kasva. They saw the Javelin throwers. Question is, what can they do against this? Because look at that. We're up to just 10 men-at-arms, 10 Javelins also out there. Kasva's gonna be the target with only 6 Camel Archers out there to defend him, plus 6 Shugenu. And as you said, those Camel Archers are extremely pricey, so they really can't afford to take suboptimal engagements over here.
Well, these Javelin throwers, remember, they get a lot of bonus damage. They're going to be castled up. They already are, in fact. And they have double your range. Literally double your range. 3.5, actually not quite. It's 3.5 to 6, right? But it's like, it feels like that. They're going to get 2 shots out before you even start firing. Oh, man. I don't like the way this is looking. Another thing to keep in mind here is Javelin throwers, they only cost 120 resources. Camel Archers cost double that. Then, of course, we have to equate in the fact that Farimba Garrison is giving a 20% discount to this massive troops. This seems very easy peasy, cut and dry. It's going to come down to what we were discussing before, the fact that one player on this side of Beavers is going to tank. The other has to boom. And it looks like Puppy Paw is now doing that.
Yeah, the question is, can he offset the difference? Because Kasva, I mean, he's gonna have to tank the damage, but how long can he sustain that? Like, he already ran out of his forest out there. Resources being denied already, Javelins diving into pick-off wills, and I don't know how long he can tank this, because this is already looking pretty grim for him.
And tanking is the word I want to highlight here. Notice that he's diving a TC with a range unit, folks. A range unit that starts off with free ranged armor. So he can freely chase you around with these javelins and shrug off the damage. And you can't target anything else here, right? Minus that scout. Men-at-Arms won't care. Javelins won't care. Sure, you killed a poor little pony, but plenty more is going to die in vengeance for that poor horse's death.
Yeah, the response is going to be Knights or Lancers more to likely from
That's
Puppy
surprising. Like, I thought maybe he'd try for cheap units, like, actually he's like Spears, right? Because there's no bonus damage against you, and then Nest of Bees. Because, like, this is a large clump coming through your opponent, and Nest of Bees could solve it.
The scary detail here is that if you go heavy on the Knight department, the Burgrave can still offset that with Spearmen. Or even just heavy maces. That's actually a pretty good response for those man-at-arms, and it's not even difficult to implement here for CSO.
That's what I mean, right? Even the Javelin throwers in this count, they do a lot of damage to you. Like, if you think about they're doing what? I think it's 9 damage on Javelin throwers by base. Half their damage will strike you, and they have 6 tower range. Like, it's no joke. Yeah, 10, sorry, even better.
Yeah. It's a really good base damage out there. Nest of Bees will be added. That could be the difference maker, though, because you don't have a lot of mobility for the army of CSO and Neptune. And sure enough, Kasva's taking a lot of damage over here, but don't forget, there's already a 50 eco lead overall on the side of Puppy and Kasva. If they can weather this storm, it could easily be the end of the game for CSO and Neptune.
I genuinely do not think they've done enough damage to Kasva. You saw what Kasva done, right? He migrated fully north. Puppypool, I'm glad he's adding the Nest of Bees, because I was worried for a sec. I think the reason we saw Lancers coming out is I mentioned in the pregame that you can afford food and gold in this map in infinite abundances, it feels like. Yep. Wood, not so much. So he probably lacked the wood to just afford pushes of Nest of Bees nonstop. But now that he's accessing new wood lines, he'll be able to indefinitely push these out. If he gets to 3 or 4, I actually think that Neptune and CSO just lose their army.
Yeah, it's actually scary. In fact, the problem for Neptune and CSO is that the army is not growing inside Kasva's base. It's still kind of the same count that we have seen before, and sure enough, Kasva's taking a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, his villager count is still alright. As you said, he migrated to the north. He's going to lose some infrastructure, but he's going to have the eco to rebuild it, and then there's a completely untouched Chinese player behind this. Yeah. Actually, never mind. Kasva's eco is bad.
Yeah, Kaz, we won't talk about his existence, but I will talk about the fact that CSO is reaching the end of his tether here, if you think about it, right? Like, you saw him, he's playing Pocket Eco as an HRE player. He's not getting food at home, and he wouldn't get it fast now because slinging's much weaker with the Malians. And now Clash coming out, frontline trying to hold his Nest of Bees are spreading out their damage. We are seeing more Javelins added in the mix-up, but no clear direct counter to take out the cavalry fast enough. Nest of Bees is surviving in the meantime, and I can't help but feel like they just lost a huge chunk of the army.
Maybe not just the army, but the game itself. Most of this is getting cleaned up. Nest of Bees still being repaired by Kasva, by the way. Beautiful team coordination there. Nest of Bees kind of idle for the time being, but most of this army is going down the drain. And when it's gone...
Why are no repair? Like, stop the repairs! This is absurd! He just keeps pulling more villages. That one Nest of Bees plays MVP. Sure, they finally get rid of it and get rid of the army. But think about the military loss there. Most of the men-at-arms are dead. Javelin count does still look good, but that means now you don't have a clear answer for the Lancers, which Puppypool is now doubling down on.
This is still a difficult hold for Puppy and Kasva. They're outnumbered 5-1 on the army department, especially with this expansion to the north also being found. But as you said, still no direct response to the Nest of Bees. If Puppypaw can add like 2 more of those, it's not gonna take more than 2 seconds to clean this army up, and then we have a massive lead for Puppy and Kasva. I feel like the numbers that you see on the screen are quite deceiving right now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, if you look at the top left, you can see there's still 7 Lancers, 5 more coming. So don't be deceived. He's rebuilding fast. Remember, Puppypool can also accelerate that if he chooses to supervise the stables. Another issue to keep in mind is, you know, did you feel like it took a while for them to kill Kasva's base?
Yes.
Every time they torched these buildings, there was an extra 5 fire armor. They weren't even as quick as they would have been if they dove the Chinese base. It's why it kind of worked out for them well that they went and got away with the Chinese greed instead. Like, Kasva is essentially just playing a nomadic tribe at this point. We're seeing him build TCs in the left corner of the map to try and reboom because he's confident that Puppypool can hold on in the meantime.
Love it. It's the same concept that we talked about in the pre-game, that right now Puppypaw's job is to shield him, and Kasva could say, okay, I'm gonna contribute 5 archers, that's all I can afford right now. Is that useful? It's not. So instead they say, okay, Puppy, you're gonna have to shield me, and I'm gonna do my best to get back into this game as soon as possible. And he's going to try to do that, being nomadic. Love the idea as well, because the opponents don't really have a lot of mobility to talk about.
No, and this is the other issue. With that lack of mobility, they're also spreading out a lot, you're seeing, right? Like, they're going in different groups everywhere. I love the fact Neptune is adding in Donzos, at least, so that'll be a solution against the Lancers. But it means that these Lancers will have more pick opportunities, like you're seeing now. When you go skirmishing and split off into groups to look for clues like you're the Scooby-Doo gang, guess what? Every once in a while, a monster might jump out and make things go bump in the night.
Night numbers still not impressive though, and army count looking good for CSO Neptune. They still have a window here. If they commit with these Donzos and they start to shut down Puppy's eco, this could easily be a game won by them, because Kasva can't contribute with the army. It's all in the hands of Puppy. If Puppy can hold this off, they're gonna have this game. But if they can do some damage to Puppy's eco here, even just idle it for 1 or 2 minutes, it could easily snowball out of control.
Yeah, the weird part about this game right now is, like, military is kind of being exchanged evenly, but a lead is being kept for Penguin. The eco, like, you're seeing so many dead from Kasva and Puppypool. Like, wow, they lost all this eco. Wow, they lost all that eco. Yeah, but it's Abbasis with multiple TCs. In fact, he's building 2 in the left corner. And then it's Chinese, right? These are the 2 most efficient civs at rapidly replacing eco. Lost and also doing it cheaply. Like, this is not over, folks. It's definitely a strong point for Fat Penguin, but they need to find a way of definitively brutalizing this base. And if they die to Neptunevs again, oh god, no, it's going to happen again, isn't it, Lidakor? I mean, the villagers, just look how many are here. If he could body block them, the Neptunevs could clean up. But, wait, what? Okay, he just abandoned ship. He said, no, Neptunevs, those things, they're too easy, they're OP. They won the last fight. I guess we'll let this one die.
Oh, he's pulling the villagers to stop the keep
that's
win.
Why. Get off my lawn! I actually don't even... Wait, I don't think he killed this. That's it. He can't get rid of it. What a move. The 1-2 tap. Fat Penguin getting the final detail they needed to make sure there's no reboot, no recovery. They finally get a point on the board.
Such an important game to win, and I love the idea that they just didn't go with the obvious Malian sling. They went with something different, and for a long time it seemed like Puppy is gonna be able to hold it off, and I think they shifted away from Kasva just in time. And as you said, if this was Dry Arabia, this could have been a different game, because Puppy probably would have had 4 or 5 Nesto bees to work with. But this was Prairie, a map where he simply didn't have a lot of wood. So at the very maximum, at a time, he had about 2 nest of bees. If he had 3 or 4 of those, he wipes out the infantry and it's game over. But due to the lack of wood, he simply wasn't able to access as many nest of bees as needed and simply got flooded. You see, he tried to boom up the army numbers, but at any time he just got overwhelmed, and nest of bees weren't really able to contribute much overall because you simply didn't have enough of them.
Yeah, I really like the pivot coming out from Fat Penguin, because I don't think we're going to ignore the fact that, like, that clash they took between Puppypool and Kasva's base